hockey. Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
Indeed, it is Judd's Hockey Show after a week off. Welcome back, Jessi Pierce, AJ Fredrickson. It's Zulgad here, and we got some interesting news. Now, Jessi, here's the most important question, though. Have you recovered from your day on the boat? Because when I called to check in with you to see if you could do the show, I didn't get a response for quite some time. And then when I did, you basically said, sorry, I'm on the boat. So, like, the off season of Pierce has definitely begun.
The off-season of Pierce is roaring. We love it. I'm okay. They can end in May anytime, you guys. I don't care about the Wild. It's so great. I love it. If I'm not on a boat, I'm on a golf course. Maybe I'm finding a patio, a paddleboard to get a little workout in. I'll be honest, I am very much into summer vacation, and I love every minute of it. However, that was pre-kids getting out on summer vacation. I now have kids home, and it's going to ruin everything. So I had just a very small window to cram it all in.
Oh, so now you got to stay home all the time with them?
Or like do things with them, like keep them active and entertained. It's a real job being a mom, man.
You got to tell them to fail some more classes. Get them in summer school. Get you more time alone.
Oh, yeah. I know, right? Like that's what needs to happen next year.
Now, I will say this. Back in the day, Dawn tells me, and so her family had 4 kids, that Mom on some summer days would lock the door and tell the kids go play outside, and they couldn't get back in until Mom decided that they could. You might want to consider going old school, Jessi.
I'm adopting this. This sounds brilliant. I'm in.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like,
you tried to take a kid on a golf course with you before? It ain't fun.
No, I'm with you.
You think the game's stressful? Man alive.
Empathetic. Anyway, okay, let's get to the big news. So, the yet-to-be-named Minnesota Professional Women's Hockey League team wins a championship. They got, they basically backed into the playoffs, and then they get in the playoffs. And I think they lost game 1 to Toronto, and then they beat Toronto, and they beat Boston in the final, overcame a lot of adversity to do so. And I know on the Bardown Beauties podcast that you and Kirsten had GM Natalie Darwitz on. And if you have not taken in that episode, do so. It's great stuff. And then last night, I'm scrolling Twitter right before I go to bed, and I see that Natalie Darwitz, of course, famous in this state hockey-wise, since she was like in 7th grade, like a prodigy player, played for the Gophers, won a national championship or 2 there, has been around the sport forever, has been let go, basically fired. Jessi Pierce, you emceed the event. I know when they won the championship, you wrote about the team all of the time. So I ask you, what is going on with a team that seemingly was on top of the world with a PWHL championship in their back pocket?
It feels icky, right? It really does. Not only did she just architect this team that won a championship, the PWHL draft is in St. Paul on Monday, so they will not have a general manager. I mean, the timing is just terrible. Natalie is a friend of mine. Like, I absolutely adore her. She is the salt of the earth human. And you could say that about everybody when they get let go of their job, but that truly is. And it just has kind of an ickiness around it because you couldn't imagine what would have led to this happening. And this happening so quickly after your team and organization just celebrated the I don't even know they've given the Walter Cup back yet to the league itself. Like, I'm pretty sure that's still in Minnesota. I reached out off the record, said I'm thinking of her, and it very much gives the vibes of a political move. There was something politically inspired behind it, right? It was somebody in the organization or somebody in when I say organization, I'm sorry, the league head organization kind of wanting to make that move and kind of push her out. And I think that's unfortunate. I'm sure more details will come to fruition. And I'd be curious to see what this means for Natalie next, if she wants to stay even involved in hockey. She's achieved so much. She's this year's IIHF Hall of Fame inductee. She's inducted in the U.S. Hall of Fame. I mean, she's done so many incredible things, and she's done it with a level of kindness that I have never seen from a general manager, somebody that's as amazing as her. Like, I always have to remind, she's always thanking me for, doing little things like tweeting out content.
I heard her on your podcast. She was praising you guys.
Yes. She made me cry at the celebration because she just stood there and inundated me with this, like, she's so great and Jessi's doing all of this, and I don't think anything of it. It's like, you're Natalie Darwitz, man. Like, you're freaking cool. Like, this isn't about me.
Great
so it is. I hate it. I saw the news. I was admittedly already asleep because the kids got me up at 5 this morning, but I saw the news at 5 and immediately was like, oh my gosh. So there was one team source that I had chatted with, and they had said, this is effed, basically. So I think that's kind of the feeling in general, because you can't imagine what possibly would have led to this at all.
Mm-hmm. I gotta wonder what that's gonna do, like, behind the scenes for the team, because it seems like a week ago, closer than ever, you know, it's a paradise. It's a hockey paradise with PWHL Minnesota. The roster is great, and now you put a stake that divides between, like, whatever powers that may be that influence this decision and what you just said, Jessi. People are like, what the F? People are shocked. And just as I think all three of us are, it's weird to have somebody essentially go as flawless and as perfect as you do as a GM for a team in a calendar year and then get the boot. It's so weird. Like, usually you get rewarded for working in, like, doing your job correctly. This feels wrong in a sense.
And during that celebration, Natalie took extra time to literally thank every single member of the organization and bring them up on stage and let everybody know what they did, right? I mean, it was just incredible. So you can't even, as we do as journalists or reporters, I try to, like, think and, like, piece together like a little anthill, right? Like, oh, maybe it was this. I honestly am at a complete loss as to what could have been that, because, again, having known Natalie over the course of years and seeing what she's done, there's nothing but respect there from everybody. So it feels, it came from the outside, the overseers maybe didn't like the weird. Only thing, and this is complete speculation, is that she advocated too hard. She maybe advocated too much, saying, you know what, we deserve this. Because that was one big thing that separated Minnesota from a lot of the other teams in the league. They played at an NHL rink. Natalie wanted them to be an NHL caliber organization, and she did everything she could to ensure that. And maybe that pushback on the rest of the general managers got to be too much. That's kind of the only thing that would make sense, at least from a league standpoint, to be like, you know what, we don't like this. We got to quiet this one and move on out.
And so just to be clear, because this is the weird part about this whole thing. This league is, so Darwitz didn't have a superior with the team, correct? Like, it's
right.
owned
Like,
by
there's
the
no
league.
Craig Leopold. There are no owners for each individual team.
So this comes from the league itself, which is what makes this so weird, because to your point, it could be politics. It could be, but I'm just curious, like, does this come from the commissioner then? Does this come from... Who does it come from at the league?
It's a board of directors, right? Which is the top of the top is Billie Jean King and Alana Kloss, and then their investors. So it's an entire board. And ironically, I feel even worse because you mentioned our podcast with her this week. She had that meeting directly after our podcast recordings, so it was all very light and airy. And then I can't help but feel she walked to her eventual doom there. So I have to imagine, because it was, and that she had mentioned was just a meeting with the rest of the general managers. So I don't know if it was a big public thing or what really happened there.
Why is it, Jessi Pierce, that Minnesota sports teams that are female based can win championships? Like what this team did, and I am so glad it's going to have a name next season. It's going to make our lives simpler. But what this team did was everything that the men's teams, right, don't do, that the Wild doesn't do. They backed into the playoffs, but once there, they got down and then they rallied, right? Mm-hmm. This team had what could have been, if it was the Wild, a disastrous no goal allowed that would have won you the championship, and then you had to go on the road for Game 5. Wild doesn't win, 10 out of 10 times. The Wild ain't coming back to win that game because they're down in the dauber. Why is it that this team, and I do think that there are some, I do think we've had players on these teams in particular that are wired, like they are the type of players that you want. And I'll give you 2 examples. In the Lynx back in the day, Lindsay Whalen, to me, is a female Mark Messier. Just a stone cold competitor killer. Taylor Heisey strikes me, and she's a kid, but she strikes me as that type. Like just a stone cold, I will beat you, I don't care. But I find it so remarkable that our men's teams never get over that hump, it seems like. And like in their first year, the hockey team most definitely did. And it was damn impressive.
Let me mansplain this to you. Women are better than men. It's science. So that's how that happens. They're just better at getting things done.
Clearly.
I can't tell you how many projects I have in my house that are incomplete at the moment because the man in my household refuses to finish them.
Come on, Mike. Mike, come on. You got the cable
You're
thing.
gonna hate me coming on this show
You
because
got the
it's just
cable
nonstop.
thing fixed, and now you can't get the projects done. If nothing else, outsource them, Mike.
I know.
Outsource them.
I know.
Don't tell
I know.
Jessi until the bills are paid, but just outsource them. Get a guy.
But I think you're absolutely right. Taylor Heisey she's the new face of women's hockey in general, right? Though she just does everything to umpteenth percent, and it's incredible to watch, especially her being a Minnesota native. But that's just it. And again, not to harp on the Darwitz situation, but Darwitz built an incredibly strong team. Like, it's something that the Wild have never done. I mean, they had a team that was from top to bottom exceptional, including Nicole Hensley, Maddie Rooney tandem. I mean, Maddie Rooney wasn't even drafted in the draft. She was picked up. I mean, she was overlooked, and that tandem hugely impacted the way this team performed. Then you have Kelly Panic, who does her thing. Lee Steckline, who's been a household name for years now back on the blue line. I mean, they had every piece. It looks like they were like... honestly, I'd compare them to Toronto, right? Where on paper, everything looked great. And they faced adversity toward the end, but that's just it. They didn't let that keep them out of it, and they prevailed at the end of it all. So to enter the playoffs, losing 5 straight, to drop 2 and be facing a sweep from the number 1 seed, and to come back and achieve what they did, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm. It's so weird because we've seen the Lynx have so much success. And then even Minnesota Aurora, like, they went undefeated in their first inaugural season, lost in the championship. They're still a powerhouse. They're still looking for that final. I know the Minnesota Vixen, I don't believe, has actually, like, climbed the championship mountain yet, but it's so uncanny how it just, like, clicks for the women team in the state, whereas the men's just fumble over themselves. And the narrative that I've seen in some dark corners of the internet is like, well, it's a different setup because the Wild came in as an expansion team, so they're working with kind of nuts and bolts here, whereas it was a even spread. Well, that's the thing. It's an even spread situation for every single team. Who's the best GM? Who can build the best team? Who has the most connections? And if you look at those first 3 draft picks, sure, they get the first overall pick. It's so easy to miss and pick somebody else. I'll admit that I maybe didn't have the knowledge of, like, how far and away Taylor Heisey was as the clear-cut first overall pick. But from my understanding, it was like, you could probably go Heisey, you could probably go LaRocque, you could, there's directions you could go. But to go with her, to go the next 2 picks, because you have that lengthy gap where you go back-to-back then and go Zoomwinkle, Hensley, and then you get all the, like you said, Maddie Rooney's picked up. It's so weird. It's so weird just how it just clicks. They have that, we're going to, it's us against the world. And I wish the men would just take a little, like the Wild, just take a page out of their book, because it's a little insane that they can't quite figure it out just yet.
I'd make a great GM of the Wild.
I think, yeah. I think,
well, you know what, though?
For assistant GM.
I'm telling you, Heisey and Whalen, that's the type of person you need. Like, just that we're not going to lose. I mean, Whalen was incredible. I mean, she was just a stone cold winner, which are hard to find. But those
we had
two.
Katie Smith in those years too, right? Like, I adored Katie Smith.
Maya Moore was the best player.
Her too.
But I mean, the point guard thing, I love a person. I love a good captain. I love a good captain. So this happened now a couple of Fridays ago in a news dump, but we've not done a show since. So your thoughts on the incredible run of Darby Hendrickson as a Wild assistant coming to an end. Now, he never coached for Jacques Lemaire, but he played on the team and, in fact, scored the first goal in franchise history at the X in the game against the Flyers back in 2000. He then coached for every other head coach as an assistant, 16 years, if I am not mistaken, from Todd Richards to Mike Yeo, and I could go down the entire list. I won't. But Jessi, your thoughts on the John Hines clearly decision to sever ties with a guy who is not a great player, but is definitely synonymous as far as his name goes with hockey in the state.
the irony of, you saw my reaction to Natalie, right? Who I was salt of the earth human, but I'm upset and I'm over it. I'm sorry, Darbs. I don't feel that way. Doesn't take anything away from him as a human. And here's what always kind of drives me a little insane about the Wild fan base or Minnesota sports fan base is we attach ourselves and glob onto some players because we like them and they like being here and they're from here and it's great, but nobody should be upset about this because really, if you look at the job that Darby's done, whatever. They haven't been good in the circle. They haven't been good on the PK, especially this year was a really tough year. I think he survived the coaching changes as he did because it's probably nice to have a familiarity. I know the guys in the room love him. The organization loved him, right? So I feel like he was probably that guy that was able to be the bridge in between a new coaching regime and that.
Yep.
But it was a news dump that I was like, I don't have any feelings on it. I'm not surprised by any stretch. Again, takes nothing away from who Darby is. I adore Darby. I know what he's meant to the organization. And he was offered a role in the front office or something. And I think he turned that down too, right? So I don't see him. Yeah, I believe that's what I had read in the Athletic article. Okay. I don't see him pursuing other assistant coaching jobs, right? I think it was just kind of one, and maybe that's just because that's Darby's demeanor in general. You guys have seen him and met him. He's just kind of very super chill, like very kind of so yeah, I'm excited to see who Hines brings in and if that can improve any of those areas that have kind of struggled as of late.
Yeah, it's a statement move for me. Like it's not like a giant impact thing, but it's more of this tells me John Hines is serious about looking to like get his guys in because frankly I'm still not necessarily sold on him as the head coach of the Wild. I feel like it's too early to judge whether or not he is or isn't, just weird situation, midseason hiring. Now he's got a full off season. He's going to go in with what should be his team, whether that's with or without Darby Hendrickson. And when you look at the press release put out about it from the team, it was a text message between like us three. You know, it was like 4 sentences. Hey, thanks for coming out. Glad to have you here, but we're going to go.
Bill Guerin's statement was not Bill Guerin's statement.
No, it's not.
What? Something about, of course, the cliche now, the state of hockey was included. I can almost guarantee you Bill Guerin has never said the words state of hockey ever before, unless it involves an F in between it. So, yeah, I think it's very fair. I also, so Darby's kid went to Minnetonka, played hockey there. I think he's going to go play for the Gophers now. I'm curious. I mean, he could help out Motzko too as well. But I think the thing that he deserves the most credit for is going back to his original role as a player. You know, if you guys recall, Doug Riseborough was basically purposely did a lot of things to distance himself from like Minnesota players. Like he wanted to bring in, he didn't want to create that. And Darby, who was an okay player. I mean, he certainly wasn't a star, but you know, a blue collar worker type of guy, made that team and played well. So it's been a great run. I think if you had told Darby in 2000, you're basically going to have a 20-year run, you know, playing and then coaching, he'd be like, that's pretty damn good. So I think it's been a good run. And I'm with both of you guys. I'm very curious where John Hines goes now. Like this is going to be pretty important. So they need to get this right. All right. Last thing for you. Jessi Pierce's Dallas Stars are out. Jessi Pierce's New York Rangers are out. We have an Oilers, Florida Panthers Stanley Cup that starts on Saturday, this being recorded on Friday. Jessi, we'll start with you. How disappointed were you to see your Stars lose? I know Kirsten piled on, basically just went to town about it. And then what's your expectation for the Stanley Cup Final?
I wasn't disappointed at all, to be completely honest. I do hate being wrong. I hate that both the Rangers and the Stars were out, so I did not care for that, right? I hate being wrong so much.
Yes.
But as I've said before about the 4 teams that were remaining, none of them were surprising. Each of them had their own element. Like, I thought the Stars were the most complete team. I love the goaltending for the Rangers. You've got Connor McDavid on Edmonton, and then you've got the Panthers, who are just kind of this wild card, but out there doing the right things, too. So, I mean, each team has a really fun element, and that's kind of how I'm approaching the finals. I want more Paul Maurice, so let's go with them. I'm going Panthers all the way.
What's happened to him? He's turned into a one-man show.
He's having a good time out there.
He
you know
is.
what? He's having a great time. I love it. So, but then again, if they lose and Connor McDavid finally gets his flowers, great. Like it's really, you can't go wrong. I'm just hoping for a good series. Yes, I think, and here's the reason I was probably less upset. The Stars are going to be there again next year. Like, they're just that good. They're not.
I love you
one
doubling
and done.
down.
Sorry,
I love Jessi doubling down here.
Just saying. They're a good.
This is what
good hockey
people who
team,
are
boys.
wrong do. They're like, well, they might not have done it this year, but they're going to be back next year.
There you go.
just wait.
Watch. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
All right. I'm going to go to the other side of the fence. Just for the sake of, frankly, I don't think they, like, given their defensive structure, given their goaltending situation, I'm not going to say have no business because they have the best player and like another top 5 player in the world on their team. But the Oilers, I think that's who I'm like background cheering for. I'm hoping more for just good games. Don't give me a 4-game series, 5-game series. I want to see 6 or 7. I want to see back and forth.
Yep.
It's just whenever McDavid or Draisaitl are on the ice, it's just so electric. They just command so much. Like the spotlight is on them. We saw McDavid the other night in that series clinching game where he just flips a switch and toe drag, walks through 3 guys. It seems like it just goes slow-mo for him in a phone booth out front.
Poor Sam Steele. Sam Steele still has no idea where Connor went.
No, not at all. And love him or hate him, Corey Perry, he just gets to finals. He gets to Stanley Cup Finals year after year.
But he egregiously did something that we still don't know in Chicago when he's in the Stanley Cup Finals. You talk about the world not being fair. Like, we don't know what this dude did, but it was bad.
It's so
ideas,
weird
right?
that we've just turned a blind eye to that. Also,
I got an idea.
Mainly too, I just want to. We've made the joke on a couple weeks here, but I would love to see just some certain media outrage to see Zach Hyman lift a cup.
He's privileged. Why?
That's rich. Yeah.
He's such a nice guy. I don't understand.
Nice guy.
I don't understand what. Well, I've got theories about why. I'm not going to talk about them because they're political. But I've got theories about. But he's the nicest guy. Now,
and he's good at what he does. Like he's good at potting those greasers. Like what's the problem with that?
And you know
Pick
what?
up the trash.
Toronto should have kept him. So like
he's
the type of guy that could, because McDavid's the best player. But Matthews and Zach would be pretty damn good too.
And lastly, probably my favorite Oiler, the longest tenured Oiler on the roster, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
God,
this guy has
him.
been through it all. He's a true ride or die. That man embodies Edmonton Oilers hockey. I want to see him hoist the cup more than anybody else on that roster.
Wasn't there one of his teammates that just told him like, yeah, he was my favorite Oiler growing up?
He's been around forever.
He's been around.
He's been on the trading block before. He's been. So I like the fact that McDavid is in the Cup Finals. I don't know how it's going to do TV wise because it's a Canadian team, which by the way I think is fun, but it's a Canadian team against a Florida team as opposed to like. If the Rangers, which would have drawn, obviously in a massive market, huge numbers. The Oilers, I think, would be fun, but I'm picking Florida. I like their goaltending way more. Stuart Skinner still scares me. Like he got red hot, but man, he is up and down.
He doesn't scare me. I was going to make that joke. Like, is this proof that you don't necessarily need the elite goaltender? Because you've got Stuart Skinner who could win a cup. Darcy Kemper won a cup. Like Colorado won despite him.
He was along
right?
for the ride. Yeah. But Skinner still scares me because he has one bad game and he could go ice cold again. But I like Bob a lot. And I just think Florida is built to win. And to your point, Jessi, I was never until this season, I was never a Paul Maurice fan. But that post-game act that he's got going is just fantastic. And Kachuk's a pain in the ass, but Matthew, I mean, what a player. And you just look at them. So I think they're going to win it, but I think the Oilers, it would be fun. And here's my question. If McDavid and Draisaitl, who are two dead asses personality-wise, win a cup, do they actually have fun?
Did you see that super uncomfortable video of
thank
when
you for
McDavid
bringing
was
that up.
bringing beer to his car?
No.
Like he had cases of beer that he was loading into his car. I get fan interaction. You guys want to say hi, take a selfie or whatever. But they were videoing and they were so in his bubble and it was so uncomfortable. I was like, back off. And he was nice. Like he was just going about his business, just loading it up and trying to do it. And it was so uncomfortable to watch because the fans made it very uncomfortable and awkward. Like I mean, again, Connor's not exactly an enticing, intriguing guy, but it was also like, it was just the most uncomfortable thing I've seen.
Who is not stepping up for Connor McDavid in that locker room to say, hey, buddy, I'll make the beer run. I'll go pick up the
that's a good
Coors
point.
Like
that's a great point, Age. That's a great point.
Get one of these rookies.
You know what he is?
Off their butt. Go to the liquor store. You don't need random people sitting in Connor McDavid's truck after he won the Western Conference Finals. Like, if you want to celebrate, send one of these guys on a minimum deal.
Yeah. Well, no, we're sending an equipment guy.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of guys that can go. You know what though? I think he is an accountant in a marvelous athlete's body. I think he's a Boras. Draisaitl, I think, might be a partier, but he's not going to show it. Like I could see Draisaitl away from the spotlight, cutting loose a lot. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Connor strikes me as like because he dresses like one. He dresses like in a sort of a disheveled accountant. like what have you ever seen about Connor?
All the goals, the numbers.
Like what have you ever seen about Connor where you're like, I bet there's something else there. I think he's a Boras, which is fine because he's an unbelievable hockey player.
Every time I'm like, what's up, Con? That's what I do say to him.
I bet you
And I embarrass the hell out of myself. Why
did
I just call Sid and Con? I'm like, hey, Sid.
Sid and Con and your guy Tyler. Sags.
What's up, Ty?
Say, what's going on? All right, I got to go. We're done. We will, I think, be back next week, probably talking finals. And who knows, the Wild might do something. She's Jessi Pierce. Check her out, Bardown Beauties, and also covers the Wild for NHL.com. He's AJ Fredrickson. I'm Judd Zulgad, and we'll talk to you later.